I walked into my grandmother's memorial thinking I was just there to say goodbye. Then my father's wife asked, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm his daughter." And the room went. I was 26 when I realized my father had not just abandoned me. He had hidden me. Raymond left when I was 5, but left makes it sound cleaner than it was. He did not disappear in one dramatic scene. When I was little, I used to ask my mother, Teresa, where he was. She never gave me some angry speech, even though she had every right to. She would just say, "Your father knows where we are." That answer hurt more than I understood back then, because it meant he was not lost. He was not confused. Nobody was keeping him away. He knew exactly where I was. He just did not come. I grew up in Richmond with my mother and my Aunt Pamela, who stepped into the empty spaces Raymond left behind. My mother worked long hours and still tried to smile when I asked if he might call on my birthday. My aunt came to school events, picked me up when my mother had late shifts. I was loved. I know that. But there is a specific kind of pain that comes from knowing half your face belongs to someone who decided your life was optional. My grandmother, Virginia, was the only person from Raymond's side who stayed. She was not perfect. She did not fight him the way I sometimes wished she had. But she called. She sent cards. Whenever I asked why Raymond did not come around, she would get quiet and say, "Your father has always been complicated." I hated that word. Complicated. As if walking away from your child was a personality trait. As if failing someone for 21 years was just a difficult little detail. But I loved her, so eventually I stopped asking. By high school, I learned how to talk about Raymond without sounding desperate. If people asked about my dad, I said he lived out of state. If they asked if I saw him, I said not much. If they pushed, I changed the subject. I told myself I did not care. Then I would see a girl at school get picked up by her father, or watch a man at the grocery store carry his sleeping daughter, and something inside me would ache in a place I never admitted was still open. Life moved on anyway. I moved to Charlotte. I built a quiet life. I worked, paid my bills, kept my circle small, and tried not to become the kind of woman who checked old messages from a man who had stopped choosing her before she even understood what being chosen meant. Then Virginia died. Her sister Janet messaged me on a Tuesday night while I was making dinner in my apartment. "Sweetheart, I'm sorry to tell you this here, but your grandmother passed peacefully yesterday morning. There will be a memorial in Pittsburgh next Saturday. She would want you there." I sat down on the kitchen floor before I realized my knees had gone weak. I knew Virginia was getting older. I knew she had been sick. But grief still makes you feel stupid for not being ready. My first thought was that I had to go. My second thought was that Raymond would be there. I almost stayed home. I imagined walking into a room full of people from his life. People who had seen him at holidays, birthdays, backyard dinners. People who probably watched his other daughters grow up while pretending I was just some old mistake that had nothing to do with them. When I told my mother, she got that guarded look she always got when Raymond came up. "You don't have to go," she said. "I know. And you don't owe anyone politeness if they make you feel small." "I know." Then she softened and said, "But if you want to say goodbye to Virginia, go for Virginia. Not for him." So I went. I drove from Charlotte to Pittsburgh with a black dress hanging in the back seat and a sympathy card on the passenger seat. The whole trip felt strange, like I was driving towards something that had been waiting for me for years. The memorial was in a small community church outside Pittsburgh. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs, framed photos, flowers, coffee in metal urns, and people speaking softly like grief had a volume limit. The first thing I saw was a table full of photos of Virginia. Young Virginia with curled hair. Older Virginia holding flowers. Then I saw Raymond. He stood near the photo table in a dark suit, older than the version I kept in my head. Gray at the temples. A little heavier. Still with the same tired eyes and the same mouth mine makes when I am trying not to cry. Beside him was a woman I knew had to be his wife, Catherine. Near her were 2 young women. One looked around 22. The other maybe 19. Olivia and Megan, though I did not know their names yet. My half-sisters. I knew Raymond had remarried. My mother had told me years ago, not cruelly, just as a fact I needed to know. She said he had daughters. A new family. New family. As if I had been the old one. One of the girls turned slightly, and my stomach tightened. She had my chin. Or maybe I had hers. Same dark eyes. Same left eyebrow that sat a little higher than the other. The resemblance was not dramatic, but it was enough to make me wonder how no one had ever looked at her and thought of me. Then people started noticing me. An older man glanced at me, looked away, then looked back too fast. A woman near the coffee table whispered to someone beside her. Scott, one of Raymond's cousins, stared for a second before pretending to check his phone. Joyce, an old family friend I vaguely remembered from childhood, pressed her lips together and looked down at her cup. They knew. Maybe not every detail. Maybe not all of them. But enough of them knew exactly who I was. And they had let me be a secret. I wanted to turn around and leave. I wanted to get back in my car and drive until the church disappeared behind me. But then Janet saw me. She crossed the room with tears already in her eyes and pulled me into a tight hug. You came, she whispered. Of course I came. She would have wanted this. I nodded, but I could not answer because Raymond had seen me. His face did not soften. He did not smile. He did not look relieved or ashamed. He looked scared. That was worse. He crossed the room fast, like he could still control everything if he reached me first. Julia, he said quietly. I didn't know you were coming. Not, I'm glad you're here. Not, I'm sorry about your grandmother. Just that. I said, Janet invited me. His jaw tightened. Right. Of course. There was an awful pause between us. 21 years of almost nothing sitting where a father-daughter hug should have been. Then Catherine stepped beside him. She smiled politely, the way someone smiles at a person they cannot place. Hi. I'm sorry, have we met? Raymond's hand twitched like he wanted to stop the question before it finished. And I do not know what came over me. Maybe grief. Maybe anger. Maybe I was just tired of making myself easier for him to ignore. I looked at Catherine and said, I'm Julia. Raymond's daughter. The word daughter landed like a dropped glass. Catherine's smile disappeared. The older girl turned fully toward me. Her eyes moved from my face to Raymond's, then back to mine. The younger one whispered, what? Raymond went pale. Catherine looked at him and said, Raymond. He looked around the room like he could feel everyone watching. Then he said, can we not do this here? That was the moment I understood. He had never told them. Maybe Catherine knew there had been someone from before. Maybe she knew some soft, cleaned-up version. But she did not know there was a living daughter standing in front of her with Raymond's eyes and Virginia's funeral card in her purse. Raymond took a step closer and lowered his voice. Can we step into the hall? I followed him because part of me wanted to hear what excuse he would choose first. The hallway smelled like old carpet and coffee. Music from the memorial room came through the wall, muffled and sad. The second we were alone, he turned on me. What was that? He asked. What was what? You know exactly what I mean. You ambushed me. I almost laughed. I had driven hours to attend my grandmother's memorial, and somehow my existence was an attack. I introduced myself. To my family? That word hit harder than I expected. Your family. His face shifted when he realized what he had said, but he did not take it back. He rubbed his hand over his mouth. You know what I mean. No, I said. I really don't. He lowered his voice. Catherine knew I had a past. She knew things were complicated when I was younger. But the girls didn't know because it was never the right time. The right time. I said. I'm 26. I plan to tell them. When? At your funeral. He flinched, and I hated that a small part of me felt satisfied. Then he said the sentence I still hear when I cannot sleep. I was trying to protect my family. His family. Not our family. Not all of us. His family. I stared at him and asked, and what was I? He did not answer. That silence was louder than anything he could have said. He looked tired, maybe even ashamed, but mostly cornered. That was when I realized he was not upset because he had hurt me. He was upset because I had become visible at the worst possible time for him. I came here for Virginia, I said. I know. Do you? His eyes flicked away. She loved me, I said. Whatever story you told yourself, she loved me. And I had a right to be here. I didn't say you didn't. You didn't have to. Everyone in that room said it for you. He looked toward the memorial room. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. That almost broke me. Because I had made things easy for him my whole life. I had been quiet. I had not called his house. I had not sent angry messages to his wife. I had not demanded answers from his daughters. I had not asked him to explain why he could raise 2 girls while pretending his first one had evaporated. I had made it easy. And he still wanted more silence. I said, I'm done protecting you. Then I walked back into the room. The rest of the memorial was uncomfortable in a way I cannot fully explain. Quiet, but not peaceful. Catherine sat stiffly beside Raymond with her hands folded in her lap. Olivia kept staring at me like she was trying to decide if I was real. Megan cried through most of the service, and I do not think it was only because of Virginia. I tried to focus on my grandmother. People stood up and shared stories. Someone talked about her flowers. Someone mentioned how she remembered birthdays. Janet spoke about Virginia's stubborn kindness and cried before she finished. I wanted to stand and say Virginia had remembered me even when her son forgot me. I wanted to say she mailed cards when he did not. I wanted to say she loved me quietly, imperfectly, but enough that I still came. But I did not. For once, I let the dead have peace. After the service, people drifted toward the parking lot. I was near my car, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest, when Olivia approached me. Up close, she looked even more like me than I wanted her to. Are you really his daughter? She asked. Her voice was not rude. Just shaken. Yes. How old are you? 26. She swallowed and looked back toward the church doors. I watched the math happen on her face. Raymond had been married to Catherine for over 20 years. Olivia was in her early 20s. I was not some ancient chapter from a life before them. I was close enough to make the timeline uncomfortable. She asked, "Did he know about you?" "Yes," I said. "He knew." "Did he see you?" I looked down at the keys in my hand. "When I was little. Then less. Then not really." Her eyes filled. "So he just left you?" There was no kind answer. So I said, "He made choices." Megan appeared beside her, crying openly now. "Why didn't he tell us?" "I don't know," I said. But I did know. Because telling them would have meant admitting he was not the man they thought he was. Raymond came outside before they could ask more. "Girls," he said sharply. "Go wait with your mother." Olivia did not move. "Is she my sister?" He looked at me, then at her. "This is not the place." Megan whispered, "That's not an answer." Raymond's face tightened. "Not now." Something in me snapped, but quietly. "Not the kind where you scream. The kind where you stop shrinking." I looked at him and said, "You don't get to erase me and then manage how I'm discovered." No one said anything. Catherine had come out behind him. She heard it. Janet heard it. Scott heard it. A few people near the steps heard it and suddenly found the pavement very interesting. Raymond looked at me like I had slapped him. Maybe I had. Just not with my hands. I got in my car and drove away before I started crying. I made it 10 minutes before I pulled into a gas station parking lot. I sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, shaking so hard I could barely breathe. I thought I would feel powerful. I thought finally saying the truth out loud would feel like revenge. It did not. It felt like being 5 again. It felt like waiting by the window. It felt like the pink helmet he sent me one Christmas without the bike. It felt like every time I pretended not to care because caring made me feel pathetic. My mother called while I was sitting there. I answered, and she knew immediately. "What happened?" she asked. I tried to tell her, but my voice broke. All I got out was, "They didn't know." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Oh baby." That made me cry harder. The next week was chaos. Olivia messaged me first. She said she hoped it was okay that Janet had given her my name, and she had questions if I was willing to answer them. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Not because I hated her, but because I was exhausted. I had already spent my life living with Raymond's choices. I did not want to be responsible for explaining them. But I also knew how awful it must feel to discover your father had hidden a whole child from you. So I answered. I told her she could ask, but I might not answer everything. Her questions came slowly. When did he leave? Did he pay child support? Did we visit Virginia? Did I have pictures? Did I hate them? That last one made me put my phone down. Did I hate them? No. I did not hate Olivia or Megan. But I resented them in ways that made me feel ugly. I resented their family photos. Their Christmas mornings. Their vacations. Their normal stories with him. I resented that they got a father who probably taught them to drive and helped carry boxes into dorm rooms and knew their favorite foods. I resented that they were allowed to belong to him without becoming a problem. But that was not their fault. So I wrote back, "I don't hate you. I don't know you." Megan messaged the next day. "I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I didn't know." I told her I knew she did not. She replied, "He keeps saying it's complicated." I stared at that word until my eyes burned. Complicated. There it was again. The soft little blanket people throw over ugly things so they do not have to look directly at them. Raymond called me 3 times that week. I did not answer. Then he sent a long text that looked like an apology if you read it fast. He said he was sorry I felt hurt. He said he had made mistakes when he was young. He said he never meant for things to happen this way. He said showing up without warning had caused damage to his household. Damage. That word made me sit on my kitchen floor and cry until my throat hurt. Not because I wanted him back. I do not even know if I did. I cried because after everything, he still saw the damage as something I caused by being seen, not something he caused by hiding me. I sent one reply. "You are not sorry you left. You are sorry they found out." He did not respond. A few days later, Catherine messaged me. I expected anger. I expected blame. I expected her to say I had been disrespectful for bringing drama to a memorial, even though all I had done was answer her question. Instead, she wrote, "Can we talk? Just once. I need to understand what was true." I almost said no. Catherine was not my responsibility. Her marriage was not my responsibility. Her pain was not my responsibility. But I knew what it felt like to be trapped inside Raymond's version of events. So I agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop in Pittsburgh the next weekend. I drove there with a folder on the passenger seat. Inside were old birthday cards, a few printed photos, and one letter Virginia had sent me when I graduated high school. I hated that I felt like I needed evidence to prove I had been real. Catherine was already there when I arrived. She looked smaller than she had at the memorial. No polished funeral face. No controlled smile. Just a tired woman holding a paper cup with both hands. She stood when she saw me, then seemed unsure whether to hug me. I was grateful she did not try. We sat across from each other, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Then she said, "He told me there was a child from before me." My chest tightened. "He did." She nodded. "But not like this." I waited. "He said your mother made it impossible. He said she was angry and kept changing rules. He said he tried, but eventually it was better for everyone if he stepped back. He made it sound like he was respecting boundaries." Something cold settled in me. Of course. He had not just hidden me. He had rewritten my mother too. My mother never kept me from him, I said. She would have let him see me. She wanted me to have a father. Catherine covered her mouth with her hand. I opened the folder and slid the old birthday cards across the table. "These are from him. They stopped when I was 10. She touched one lightly, like it might burn her. I showed her a photo from my high school graduation. Me in a blue cap and gown, smiling too hard. Virginia beside me, proud and crying. No Raymond. I invited him, I said. Virginia told him to. He didn't come. Catherine's eyes filled. I did not feel sorry for her exactly, but I felt something. She had been lied to too. Not in the same way. Not with the same wound. But Raymond had built her life on a version of himself that did not exist. He told me he had regrets, she whispered. Regrets are easy when nobody asks you to fix anything. She nodded like it hurt because it was true. Then she said, "The girls are devastated." I know. They keep asking why he would do that. What does he say? That it was complicated. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Catherine wiped her cheek. "I'm sorry." I looked at her. She said it again. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I'm not the person who owes you the apology most. But I'm sorry I lived in the house that got him while you were out there thinking you were easy to leave. That broke me more than I expected. Because that was exactly it. For years, I told myself Raymond's choices said something about him, not me. I told myself I was grown, healed, over it. But some small part of me had always wondered what was wrong with me. Why not me? Why could he show up for them and not me? Why could he be a father to 2 daughters and leave one behind like an old receipt in a coat pocket? I said, "He let you build a family on a lie." Catherine whispered, "And he let you grow up carrying it." Before we left, she asked if Olivia and Megan could keep talking to me. I told her they could, if they wanted, but I would not become a therapist for a mess Raymond created. She said, "That's fair." Then she hesitated. "Do you want him to reach out?" I thought about lying. I thought about saying no because it sounded stronger. But I was tired of pretending. "I want him to want to," I said. "But I don't know if I want to answer." She nodded like she understood the difference. Months passed. Catherine separated from Raymond. I found out from Olivia, not because she was gossiping, but because things at home had gotten unbearable. Raymond kept saying everyone was overreacting. He said the past was the past. He said he could not change what happened. He said I had humiliated him at his mother's memorial. That part spread through the family fast. Some people thought I had done the right thing. Janet told me Virginia would have been proud of me for standing in the truth. Pamela said Raymond was lucky I had not done worse. Others thought I should have handled it privately. Scott apparently told someone I had chosen the most dramatic moment possible. Joyce sent me a message saying she was sorry for not saying hello at the memorial, then added that grief makes people do intense things, which felt less like an apology and more like a polite accusation. Privately. That word started to make me angry. People always want the abandoned person to be private. Be hurt privately. Be erased privately. Be graceful privately. Let the person who caused the damage keep their public image because your pain is inconvenient when other people can see it. But my life had been private for 21 years. My birthdays without him had been private. My graduation without him had been private. My mother working herself exhausted while he built another home had been private. One honest sentence in a church hall did not feel like cruelty to me. It felt like air. Olivia and I kept talking. Carefully at first. Then more naturally. She told me she kept seeing my face when she looked in the mirror now, which made her feel strange and guilty. I told her guilt was not hers to carry. Megan was softer, more emotional, and apologized so much I eventually told her she had to stop. She sent me little messages sometimes. A video of her dog. A picture of a terrible coffee she bought on campus. Once she sent, "Is it weird that I want to call you my sister?" I stared at that one for a while. Then I wrote, "It's weird. But not bad." That was the closest I could get. I still do not know how to be their sister. Some days it feels sweet. Other days it feels unfair. They are not responsible for what Raymond did, but knowing them means standing close to the life I did not get. It means hearing stories where he was present and trying not to let bitterness poison something that might become good. I am trying. I think they are too. Raymond finally emailed me 2 months after the memorial. Not a text. Not a call. An email, probably because it let him organize himself without facing my voice. He said he had been ashamed. He said every year that passed made it harder to tell the truth. He said he convinced himself I was better off without the disruption. He said Virginia had begged him more than once to reconnect with me, and he always said he would, but then he did not. For the first time, he wrote, "I failed you." I read that sentence over and over. I wanted it to heal something. It did not. It felt good for maybe 10 seconds, and then I got angry all over again because he had known. He had always known. This was not confusion. This was not bad timing. This was not a man who lost track of his child in the chaos of life. He knew he failed me while he was doing it. At the end of the email, he asked if we could meet. He said he wanted to explain. My fingers hovered over the keyboard until the screen dimmed. There were so many things I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask if he thought about me when Olivia lost her first tooth, when Megan learned to ride a bike, when he packed school lunches, signed permission slips, carried sleeping daughters from cars into houses. I wanted to ask if I ever crossed his mind. I wanted to ask why I was so easy to leave. But I did not reply. Not that day. Not the next day either. Because I realized something small but important. I did not owe him immediate access to my pain just because he had finally found the courage to look at it. For years, I thought closure would come from him. From an apology. From an explanation. From him sitting across from me and saying the perfect words that would make the little girl in me stop waiting by the window. Now I think closure might be quieter than that. Maybe closure is Catherine knowing the truth. Maybe it is Olivia and Megan knowing I exist. Maybe it is my mother no longer being painted as the woman who kept him away. Maybe it is Virginia's memorial becoming the last place I ever allowed myself to be treated like a secret. I am not saying I will never meet Raymond. Maybe I will. Maybe one day I will sit across from him and listen. Maybe I will say every ugly, honest thing I swallowed for 21 years. Maybe I will ask him questions. Maybe I will walk out before he answers. I do not know yet, but I know I am done being managed. I am done being the quiet little mistake from before. I am done being called complicated. I am done letting people decide my existence matters less than a man's comfort. The strange thing is, I did not leave that memorial with a family. Not exactly. I did not suddenly gain sisters in some perfect ending. Catherine is not my friend. Raymond is not redeemed. Half the relatives still do not know what to do with me. But I left with my name back. For most of my life, Raymond got to decide where I belonged. He decided I belonged in silence. He decided I belonged outside the frame. He decided his wife and daughters deserved a version of him that could only exist if I stayed invisible. At Virginia's memorial, I stopped letting him decide. My calm victory is not that his marriage cracked. It is not that people are angry with him. It is not even that Olivia and Megan know the truth now. My calm victory is that I walked into that church as the secret daughter and walked out as Julia. A person. A daughter. A sister, maybe. A granddaughter who had every right to be there. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe I should have warned him. Maybe I should have pulled him aside first. Maybe there was a softer way to tell the truth. But he had 21 years to choose a softer way. He did not. So was I wrong for telling my father's wife and daughters who I was at my grandmother's memorial, even though it blew up the family he built after abandoning me?